Okay, welcome on this cold Thursday afternoon. So we're going to have a bit of fun today. We're going to take move things into the realm of web applications, and so as discussed, we're going to look at using a content management system and how we can deploy that content management system and then quickly build a theme or a kind of a design, well, a theme, a common look and feel rapidly, and then customize that so that instead of building a theme for our CMS from scratch, we can take kind of a bare bones theme or something that kind of addresses most of our UI needs, and then modify that or customize that for our organization or the company we're working for or whatever. So how do we take a content management system, a very common one like WordPress in this case, and how do we build a theme and customize it so that we're not spending a lot of time reinventing the wheel? We're not reinventing things like responsiveness. We're not building templates from scratch for different types of content in the website. We're not rethinking navigation schemes. We can use a template or a design, for lack of a better term, that works for our needs for about 90% of the content, and then customize it from there. So a lot of the work you're going to be doing, your organization is going to be looking for ways to get things done more effectively, faster, and cheaper, right? So, so today we're going to cover what's called a WordPress child theme. So if you can fire yourself up a tab with Blackboard on it and navigate over to Module 9. And please let me know if the text gets a little small. So I'm going to use my laptop, my personal laptop here instead of the desktop podium. So it's a much smaller screen, so it's a little bit more of a challenge for me to read at the desk, and maybe for you at the back. But let me know if the text is that big enough to read at the back, guys? Is that okay? A little bigger? It's okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at WordPress. We're going to deploy WordPress on a server. We're going to use the Azure platform to deploy a WordPress instance. We're going to then enable something called a parent theme. So we're going to imagine ourselves, hey, we've got a theme that's designed, and WordPress is such a generic application now. People actually build themes that are meant to be built upon. So they give you it's kind of like a very plain kind of scaffold that allows you to just not worry so much about things like the basic layout, your primary, your secondary navigation, all those kind of basic UI components. Those are all built for you. But here's a theme that you can extend and customize to meet your organization's needs. And this is very important, particularly in this time where people are looking to do more with less, in terms of less time, less costs. So we're going to look at enabling a parent theme and then creating a child theme that inherits all of those properties of the parent theme, but then allows you to customize it without reinventing the wheel. So this will really give you a taste of the power of something like WordPress. And WordPress isn't the answer to every application. Far from it. It's a very specific application where you're looking to provide a platform for non-technical users to contribute posts or pages or hierarchically organized content. There's all kinds of interesting extensions to WordPress. You can purchase themes as well as use ordinary ones that are free for use under, say, a GPL license, and then you can modify them yourselves. There are also lots of plugins that extend WordPress and enable things like you can, for example, enable Magento or Shopify content and e-commerce within the platform. So a lot of those APIs you can, instead of building your own plugin, you can purchase or obtain a plugin and extend WordPress. So it's a very flexible and open platform. The downside to WordPress is that it's in some ways a victim of its own success. It's so massive, and it was so easy for designers and developers to work with, and it's met so many people's needs for websites that now it's garnered a large share of the open web in terms of its content. So what that means is it has a bit of a target on its back in terms of security. So you need to be mindful of that as well, right? So anything that's incredibly popular, obviously that's going to be very attractive to nefarious organizations that are going to look to try and steal important or valuable information. So you have to be cognizant of that. So WordPress is most certainly not the answer to everything, but it's a very common platform. You will have, by the time you're done this program, you have any and all the skills necessary to do anything you want with a platform like that. It won't be the #1 kind of personal publishing platform forever, right? Other things will supersede that, but all of the things that all of the tools that you're learning in this program, they are certainly useful in customizing that. So we're going to so we're going to not only we're going to deploy a WordPress app, we're then going to connect to that using Git. So this is something that I'm kind of a Git newbie. I'm a little bit rough with Git. Git is not what I used in production when I was working actively full-time in industry. I was using SVN and command line. So I was using some source control, but Git wasn't even a thing. And Git and platforms like GitHub, they didn't exist. And so what we're going to do is we're going to some of you guys have experience with GitHub, obviously as a platform for hosting those repositories. We're going to connect, we're going to create a local repository for the WordPress files, and we're going to connect directly to Azure and set up a repository on Azure, and then connect those two repos. So we're going to do something a little different. So I ask you to bear with me. I've struggled through it a little bit. As you know, Azure can be a bit of a beast sometimes, and so it may take all of us to get everything just working just tickety-boo, but that's okay. That's what I love to do. That's the nature of web development, is change is constant, right? So let's do it. Let's do something a little different. So we're going to try it a little differently. If we can't get those connections to work, we can always connect via FTP or SFTP. That's cool. But let's try and get this. Let's try and get Git working through command line. And we're also going to try Visual Studio Code, which is of course the light version of Visual Studio. Has some pretty neat baked-in Git tools that allow us, and we'll see how we can kind of maybe plug those in as well, and see how that can stream our workflow, streamline our workflow. So anyway, so to that end, what I'd like you to do is start up, open a new tab, and go to the portal. Go to portal.azure.com. And sign in with your personal Microsoft ID. Oh, I know what the problem is. The persistent login issue. Yeah, okay, there we go. So if you're logged into Blackboard, because that's using your student the student login, that Azure may complain a little bit, but that's okay. Make sure when you've logged into the portal that you are logged in using your personal ID up the top. If it says your student address up there, that is no good. Okay, so do that now. Make sure you're logged into Portal properly with your Microsoft ID. I'll give you a couple seconds to do that. I'll zoom this up a bit so you can see a bit better. Okay, there are a ton of different ways to deploy install WordPress. It's important to understand there are two different primary installation types for WordPress. One is where you would download and host it yourself. So you will manage the source files. So if you go to wordpress.org, that's where all the source files are. You would download and then take these, and you are then responsible for that code base. You're responsible for keeping it up to date wherever you put it, securing it, all that kind of thing. The other option is WordPress.com. Which I have an account. That's not it. Just go to WordPress.com. Back to WordPress.com. So with the WordPress.com, a company called Thematic, they manage all of the infrastructure. They manage all the files. They provision you with an account, but you are hands off in terms of those source files. So you go to sleep at night, and they take care of things like security updates and patches. It's not on you, right? It's very different. So we're going to be taking the route whereby we are managing the code base ourselves, right? And WordPress does have some pretty elegant tools in terms of keeping the code base for the application current within the dashboard. So it does prompt you and say, hey, there's an update. You can even set it to automatically update. If you've built your themes and your content properly, an update shouldn't break anything in your application. And we'll teach you how to do it that way. So anyhow, a lot of hosting operations, a lot of hosting outfits will actually give you kind of what they call one-click installs. So what they'll do is they'll have their service connected to the WordPress, to the repository, and they'll be pulling that code base for you, and they'll give you a utility to kind of launch it yourself. So that's what we're going to do with Azure. So if you go over here to the New tab, or the New button here, and down at the bottom here, you should have WordPress at the bottom right. Yes? No? It is not there in recent? Okay, let's go to, if you go to then App Services here, it should, no, that's Service Plans. More services. Okay, if you click on New, you head down to, where would it be? Would it be Web and Mobile, I think? Would it be under Web and Mobile? No, where did they stash it? See all. See all here? Would it be? Did I go right by it? Yes, WordPress. Okay, thank you. I guess it was in my recent apps deployed. So yes, if you go to New and then See All, I guess you can search. There's a little search utility you can type in there as well. You should have WordPress. Okay. So find that in your list of apps, and then at the bottom here, we'll hit Create. Create an instance of WordPress. So the neat thing about this is what it'll do is that it'll spin up a virtual server for you, running Windows Server. I think it's 2012. It'll deploy that virtually on a data center. So inside kind of a wherever you decide you want to deploy this on the Azure, whatever data center. So what we'll do is give it a name. So we're going to say, I don't know, maybe we're going to create a subdomain here. So I'm going to say WordPress dash put my name S. McCrindle. So you might have to try a few before you get a unique subdomain on the Azure Websites.net top level domain. So find something that works for you. The subscription, you'll probably say Imagine. Mine says DreamSpark because I signed up a long time ago. They didn't. Resource group, use one of the existing ones. I've set one up for. I'll create a new one for this class, COMP2081. For app service plan location, you can create a new one if you want. I like to. I don't know why it defaults to the south. Mine tends to default to the south central U.S. I think that's because our internet backbone. I think we connect to our primary connection to the open internet is actually, I think it's out west through our ISP, which is Bell. I'm not exactly sure. I think it has trouble kind of geolocating us. But I like to change mine to, where's Canada here? Canada East, right? And make sure you leave it as the free pricing structure. Or Canada Central. I don't know. I guess Canada Central might be a little closer to us. So try and pick a data center that I would go for a Canadian one. You can save that. Okay, make sure, and also there's a little note here about MySQL in-app. So what happens is when they deploy this app, it also deploys an instance of MySQL Server, and then it also creates a database on that MySQL Server for you running on that same host, on that machine. So it's kind of like an all-in-one. It's just everything's in bundled up together, and they just launch it for you. It's very cool. You could just deploy PHP MySQL app on Azure, but then you have to get into creating the data, creating a database, deploying a database server, creating a database, naming it, building credentials, and all that kind of thing. By all means, go ahead and do that. This is pretty good. So we're going to also pin it to your dashboard and go ahead and hit create. And it will deploy all of those resources for you. Let's see here. Oh, there it is. So yeah, it'll take a bit there. I'll make a bit of space here. I can't. Oops, that's not what I want to do. And hopefully your deployment will have succeeded. Okay, I'll give everyone just a few minutes, make sure that you've deployed an app and it's successful. You may get some problem with loading metrics and things like that. It's fine. So you'll see here up at the overview panel, which it should, once it's finished deploying, it should roll out. You should see that the external repository is pulled from GitHub and is the Azure App Services. So they have their own series of repositories which they manage and keep up to date. So it's pulled that code base from there, right? So that's pretty cool. Cool. So now we want to enable this application in Azure to function as a managed repository, right? So we go in here to deployment options. Oh, I'm sorry. It's deployment credentials. First, set up your deployment credentials. So here you'll have your FTP deployment and username. What I want you to do here is to create a new password. It can't be the same as your login password for the Azure portal. It has to be something different. So create something a little bit different here. Just don't forget what it is. All right. So type in a password there under deployment credentials that makes sense to you. And when you're done, hit save. Okay, then we go up here to deployment options. And you should see that the GitHub, it's pulled a pull request from that GitHub for the code base. Nope, leave that. Options. I think that's good. Now, does everyone see that on the screen from the GitHub? Or is it a different choice there? No? You can see the same thing? Okay. That's cool. So we've got our deployment credentials. Deployment options is Git. So now if we go to the overview here, the last thing I haven't quite got the Git here. Hang on a second. This is where I've had a bit of fun getting this going. Okay, I think we have to. Okay, I think we have to disconnect from the source control. Yes. Okay, so you have to disconnect from the source control. There's a little button at the top there, disconnect, because we're going to be creating our own. That was the step that stymied me. All right. So once you do that, you go back to the back here. You click on deployment options. Then it should say configure, choose source, require, and then we have a number of choices here. Yes. Has everyone managed to get back to that? No. Okay. So at the top here, when you go into bear with me a second. So when you go into deployment options, it should have, if it has a box that says pulled from GitHub, there's at the top button, there's a disconnect button. Click on that. You need to disconnect from because we're going to connect to a local source now. Then once you do that, it should take a second to disconnect. Is anyone else having trouble disconnecting? No? Then we go back to deployment options, configure required site, and then we go into local Git repository. Then you can click this again. Oh no, I guess that's right. Local Git repository. Okay. And sorry, and then hit OK at the bottom. Okay, and you should get a successfully set up deployment source. Crazy stuff, crazy Azure. All right. Now if we go back to the overview, you should now see a Git deployment name and a Git clone URL. In the overview tab. Yep. So you go to deployment options. I guess I'd have to disconnect. I'll disconnect it. So if you have a note up here, if there's a note that it's connected to GitHub where it got the source, then what we do is we hit the disconnect to shut that down. Okay. This might really mess things up, but that's all right. Failed. Oh, that's not cool. Yeah, I know. All right. So then I'll go back, hopefully maybe, oh yeah, all right. Then we choose deployed source, we choose local Git repository. Yep. And then when you get that, at the bottom, there's a little blue button that says OK. Hopefully I didn't completely trash my server. All right, so then if we go to overview, if that was successful, when you go to overview, you should now see at the top here a couple of things, your Git deployment username and your Git clone URL. Okay. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to create. Yeah, before we fire it up, let's get this repository on our local machine. So let's go into your local file system. I've got Mac OS, so if just use the Windows, your file navigation system. And so I've got a folder for this particular course. So go into whatever folder you've got for this course. And this is unit not, or no, that's the wrong one. Advanced, sorry, lessons, lesson 9. And in there, create a new folder. And we'll call this Azure-WordPress. So create a new folder called Azure.WordPress on your local machine. Okay, so next step is we're going to go to our terminal. So open up your terminal window. I'll zoom this up a bit so you can read what I'm going to type. Okay, and some of this should look familiar based on some of the work you've been doing with Rich's class, right? So obviously a knowledge of your own file system. I don't know how you organize your personal hard drive is going to be required. So so I'm going to I'm going to go to or CD or ls my directory. So I'm going to go to, I've got my stuff in Dropbox, so I'll change directory to Dropbox. And then I have to go to Georgian College, CD. Then I need to go to courses. So navigate to that directory that you created. And mine was called, what do I call it? Azure-WordPress. Azure-WordPress. Okay, that should be empty. So navigate your terminal to that folder that you created called Azure WordPress. Okay, so now we're going to add this repository. So first of all, we'll go back here. Go back to Azure now, and you see where it says Git clone URL. Over to the right here, it says click to copy. So copy that to your clipboard, rather than trying to click and drag and copy. You're going to miss characters. Just use the little button that they give to you there and copy that to your clipboard. Now we'll go back to our terminal. And we'll say git remote add Azure and then paste. I'll highlight it in green. So git remote add Azure, and then paste that into the terminal. Oh, I guess I have to initialize that directory. This is where I've managed to mess it up the last time I did it. All right, let's clone it instead. Let's say git clone. And paste that. Then it should ask you for the password. That was the password you put in the credentials into Azure. Sorry? Deployment credentials. So there was your username for FTP and then the 2 passwords. Enter that. Cross your fingers. What's that?
You appear to have
cloned an empty repository. See if I get the same.
That's a warning.
Yeah. Shouldn't be empty though. Yeah, you got it down? There should be 1,675 objects. It's going to take a while. It won't be right away. Yeah. So it may take a while, hopefully. You should get in green. You should get something that looks kind of sort of like that in green in your terminal. So then if I go to my file system and I look here, you can see inside my file system. Whoops. You should see it pulls down a folder that will be the name of the subdomain that you named so up here. No, whatever. Oh no. Oh, it's my dumb login for Blackboard. Yeah, that's a problem. So yeah, so the folder that you download should be the same as what you called your app on Azure, right? So that's what was cloned. Now, if I understand correctly, and you may correct me if I'm wrong, because that's entirely possible. If I want to store those credentials locally, I'll do the following with Git. So what I'll do is I'll set git config credential.helper store. Nope, guess not. That worked last time. Didn't work for me now. All right. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we've got all of the files. We've got all the files. They're up on the server on Azure. They're locally. We have them locally down here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to fire up Microsoft Visual Studio Code and see if we can get that talking to this repository. So let's Visual Studio Code. So fire up a copy. Hopefully yours looks similar to mine. From what I understand, the Windows and the Mac versions are virtually identical. We've got a few Macs here. Next thing, we'll create a new folder. So if you go into File in Code, go to Open. And open the Azure WordPress. Don't open up the folder inside that was pulled down when you cloned it. Open the top level folder called Azure WordPress. Okay, and then over in the Explorer here, you should have the Azure WordPress folder, and then inside there, you can crack open the WordPress, whatever you called your app, and then all the WordPress files should be there. So I'll do that again. So I'll close this folder, file, close. So go into code, go to open, just go to open, file open. Does Windows say file open folder? Sometimes they change it does it? Yeah. Sometimes they change it just enough to be a pain. And then open up, select the Azure-WordPress, not the folder inside. And then you should have that. If you crack that open, you should see WordPress and then your files. Okay, so now that that's there, now I want to go into the source control button here on the left. And if you have a recent copy of Studio Code, you click that and it should just say, I don't know, it should just say source control Git, because Git is just kind of the default. It's kind of baked right into the code editor. So when you click that, it should say source control Git. Yes? No? Sometimes. So that's cool. So you see here this button here, this is the commit button. This is the refresh button. This horizontal ellipsis are a number of the controls for Git, right, that we can use. And any changes that have not been committed will appear here. So we'll see that shortly. Okay. That's cool. So let's go ahead and launch. So that's in place. Let's go back to our dashboard on Microsoft Azure. And on the dashboard, click on the overview if it's not already in front of you. You'll see here the URL for the WordPress app. So we'll go ahead and we'll click that. We'll copy the URL for the WordPress app. We'll open a new tab. And we'll paste and go. As soon as you do that, it will automatically redirect you to the WP admin folder. Should. It might take a second. It'll ask you for your language. Of course, choose whatever language you wish. Okay, so now what we're actually doing is configuring the WordPress app itself. We're actually setting some of those parameters. You can change all of these once the app is launched. So give it a site title, for example. I'll call this COMP2081 WordPress test. Your username is kind of like you're setting up an account for yourself, an administrator account on this WordPress application. You can change the password. You can leave that if they wish. I'll change mine. It's not very strong. That's okay. Confirm use of weak password. Yes. Set an email that you actually can access. If your student email is fine. Okay. Now this is important here. What we want to do is we want to turn away the search engines, right? Because it's going to be available on the open web. But I do want to put a robots text file for directing the site to not follow. So if you click this off, when we finalize installation of this, it'll write a little robots.txt file, and it will say no index, no follow. So it'll now of course the search engines can ignore that, but generally speaking they do pay attention to that, because often what you're saying is there isn't any content here that's worth indexing on the search engine. I'm not ready to deploy live, for example, even though it is live, so to speak. Okay, so then go ahead and click and install WordPress. It'll chug away for a while. So what this is doing now is install.php is creating those database tables on the MySQL server on Azure. Sure, update my password, why not? Okay. Now it'll ask you to log in. Once it should say success, unless something went horribly wrong. You can choose to remember me if you want, a persistent. And you should be at the dashboard for WordPress. Not to be confused with the dashboard for Azure. Right? Azure is the infrastructure upon which this app you just create. There's a number of layers, right? So Azure is the infrastructure running on Microsoft data center. So that's and then you've actually deployed a virtual server which is actually running Windows 2012 Server Edition, which upon that you've installed it has PHP running on it. It has MySQL as the database server. And then you've installed on that an instance of the WordPress web application. And now we are accessing the administrative panel of the WordPress application running on that server. So there's lots and lots of different layers running. So it's anyway, there we go. So that if you've got that far, that's pretty cool. Let's see if I missed anything. Okay, that's cool. So let's we'll go back to the code here, and then we'll go back to our code, see if we can make a small change and get that up to the server. So click on the Explorer button up here, back in Visual Studio Code. And you'll see down here there's a file called README. Okay. And we can access this. If we can actually README if we can go into here, and we can replace, copy this URL in a new tab, and then instead of WP admin, we can replace this with readme.html. And this README file will walk you through some of the housekeeping tasks involved in installing your own version of WordPress. It just comes included with the code base. That's cool. So we'll change this. See if we can change this file and get Visual Studio Code to be publishing directly to that. So I'll change this. I'll put say an exclamation point or something here. Edit this page in some way. Whoops, that's too big. I'll just put an exclamation point here. Or I can say success, something like that. Something that's really obvious and maybe in the H2 there. Okay, so if you hit save, once you hit save, once you edit that, you should see a little badge come up on the source control here, and it should note that there is a change to the README file, right? So now, if we want to write a commit message in here, we simply type in here, verifying get with, just put whatever you want, with Azure, I guess, or something like that. And then go ahead and hit the commit, the checkbox up here. And then from the horizontal ellipsis, we'll push that up to, you'll see a little kind of a, kind of looks like Knight Rider from the 80s. That should go up there. And if that worked okay, if everything's cool, when I reload this page, I should see success. So just make a simple edit to readme.html. You should see a little badge when it comes up here. So, right? So I go file, save, file, save. Then a badge should come up under the source control. It should indicate that. You can discard changes. You can stage the changes. There's a way to do diff here as well, so you can see a difference between the saved file and the other one, and I'm still kind of finding my way around this. I think it's in the, I can't remember how exactly to get to that. Anyway, so you go ahead and add a update file, commit that, and then push up to Azure. There you go. So whereas in the with Rich's class, what you're doing, we're doing something similar, but with Rich's class, what you're doing with Azure is the repository is on GitHub, and you're setting Azure up to continuously pull those changes from GitHub. So now what we're doing is we're kind of just taking GitHub out of the equation, going directly from a local repository to a repository on Azure, right? Which is kind of a new thing for me, which is cool, and yeah, it's amazing. So Windows Azure has all kinds of little tricks, and what I think is particularly awesome is there's nothing wrong with Visual Studio. That's awesome, but Visual Studio Code, this is virtually the same app. I think they port it, and it's the same code base for Linux, Mac, and Windows. So it's same. So this is going to look identical on all those platforms. So that's really cool. The fact that it's kind of a cross-platform solution to connecting to Azure and then working with a managed code base. Okay, that's cool. So being at 3 o'clock, we'll take a breather, and then we're going to get into hacking and slashing the WordPress files and doing some crazy stuff with WordPress. Right. So now that the mechanics are set up, that's good. So if you're stuck on any of those steps, flag me down, or don't be afraid to tap a neighbor on the shoulder. See if we can get everyone set up. Okay. Find yourself a coffee. We'll come back. Okay, would anyone like to see FTP? How to move files up to FTP rather than Git? Yeah, would you like to see how to do that? Can we show you that? Okay, we'll show you that, and then you've got more than one way to connect to the server. So with FTP, what we would do is we would fire up FileZilla. Okay. No, let's not download an update just right now. They always want to update right now. Okay, so with FileZilla, so how to get published directly to an app? We head over to the dashboard for Portal. Or sorry, not the dashboard for WordPress. I don't know why my session keeps kicking me out. Okay, so we go to from the dashboard, you go to the application that you want. Where's the one is this the one I had running today? I think so. WordPress COMP2081. So what you do is you go up to the top here and you get the publish profile. Okay, we see this here. We download, this will download a publish settings file, which is just a plain text file. It's XML. So you download that. I'll save this into the WordPress S. McCrindle file. Or sorry, no, what was it? The Azure, sorry, my Azure WordPress. I'll save that so I know where it is. And you can open up that file with a code editor. Okay. So the published profile is just a piece of XML. You can also use this with Visual Studio to connect directly to Azure. So if you can upload this file, and it will use, I think it's called MS Deploy, and so they'll use their they'll connect directly. I'm not sure exactly what the protocol is, but they'll connect. It's very kind of slick. So, but if you wanted to use, you can see here the second set of published profile tags here. So there's two published profile tags. The first one is for MS Web Deploy or MS Deploy. The second one is for FTP. So here you have three pieces of information that we need. We need the publish URL, which is this FTP here, right? We need that. We also need the username and the password, which is here, user password. Okay. So we've got these things. First thing, you grab the publish URL, copy that to your clipboard, and then in FileZilla, we can go to File. We can in our Site Manager, we can create a new site, and I'll call this Azure, for example, WordPress. You call it whatever you want. And then under there should be a number of tabs here. We're going to go for the General tab, and in the host, we paste in that big long host that they have here. So the publish URL goes into the host. Okay. Port you can leave blank. The login type, change the login type to normal. And the user, we can get rid of the anonymous user, and we can get rid of the password, because we'll replace those with our own username and password that we find in the publish settings file. So the next one is the username. I'll grab all of this stuff right here. everything between the two quotes, and place that in the user field. And the password, I'll grab the user PWD attribute, copy that, paste that into the password field. We'll leave everything else default. Now go ahead and try and connect. So hit connect. It might ask you, it might prompt you about an unknown certificate. Always trust this certificate. You created this server, so you trust it, obviously. And you should be able to log in. Then we should have, so then if you go under, so here's your, now you've got your local files here. So we'll browse on our local files. We'll try, you'll have to navigate your whole hard drive locally till you find your lesson files for today. And this is COMP2081. Where we got to advanced web design lessons, and we want lesson 9, custom app themes. In here I want the, what did I call it? Was it Azure-WordPress? Right? And then inside there you'll have the WordPress, the file, WordPress, or well, when you connect to this, you can pull it down there. So go into site, go into www.root, and then what you do is select all of this stuff here, Control A, and drag all of this stuff down locally to the left. So pull it down from the server. It'll take a while to come down, and then I can't do that now because I'm using, that will mess up my, that will do some really funny things, talk about, you know, with my Git, if I drag that stuff down there. Then you'll have your local files, and then you can publish them up that way. So there's another alternative for you if you can't get, if Git's being rickety and you can't get the crazy thing to work. So there you go. Publish settings. So we get that from your portal, from the WordPress portal, with this button here, Get Published Profile. Cool. All right, so we're gonna move on now. We're gonna go on to WordPress itself. Okay. If you haven't got connected or your portal isn't up and running, you've got plenty of time afterwards. I'll make sure this is published up to YouTube, and you can munch your way through it at your own leisure. Okay, cool. Okay, so if we take a look, we're going to go to our file system here. We're going to begin to, if we take a look at, I guess we'll first here we'll go into the appearance. So go into the dashboard for WordPress, not for Azure, but for WordPress. And go ahead down and go to the appearance and select the themes. And here you'll have a number of themes that are available to you. Okay. So what we'll do is, so for example, we can view this, we can check this site out as it is. You can click on the, you can click on this and you can activate or see a live preview of the theme. So for example, let's go into 2015 and let's activate the theme. So this is now the active theme for WordPress. So if I want to see it, if I mouse over the top here, I go visit site. So this is the theme. So there's a recent post. So there's not much content in the application. Okay. One of the things when you're styling an application is if you have a content management system and you install it, you have nothing in there to style, right? That's one of the problems because you're like, wow, I want to see what a typical post looks like, or a post with some photographic content, or maybe a post with an embedded YouTube clip, or what does the navigation look like when there's lots of pages in there? If you don't have any content in there, it's hard to style the application. So what we have is there's something called a theme unit test. And a theme unit test is a collection of dummy content that you can install, and it's just gibberish, but it's a thoughtfully put together package of different types of pages and posts that basically feature all of the different permutations, a very wide variety of all the different types of content that users might put into your CMS, into WordPress. So it gives you a very good kind of a platform to build a style, to style it typographically, to do layout and all those kind of things. So we're going to put in a theme unit test. I'll leap ahead here. So if you click on this little tab here, and we go, just Google in theme unit test. And the first thing you'll get is the theme unit test from the WordPress Codex. That'll be your first hit. So this is really cool. So what they've done is they've got a piece of XML that just basically contains a whole heap of posts, which are chronologically organized, basically blog posts, and pages that are hierarchically organized so that you can put them in, pump those into the CMS, and then you could easily see how your styles will affect the application. So right here you'll see you can either pull it from the GitHub repository here, or you can pull it, download a copy directly from raw.github usercontent.com. So click on this link here, and you'll see a piece of XML. You'll see it's a very large piece of XML. This contains all of that post data, right? So what we'll do is we'll go to File, save this as, save the page as. I'll throw this into the Azure WordPress directory here. And you'll see, leave it as themeunittestdata.wordpress.xml. Don't change the name or do anything crazy with that. Just leave it. Save it. Take a second or two. Okay, now let's go over to the dashboard in WordPress. So you can, at the top left, there's always this kind of administrative bar. You can click on here and go back to the dashboard. And in the dashboard, we then go into tools on the left, and we want to import. So we want to import that data. So there's a number of different ways. So a lot of these CMS and blog type platforms that you can kick out the data. Like if you have a ton of content in there, you can export it and you can suck it into another platform if you want. So many of them are fairly cross-platform in terms of their content, and where they're not, people have built really cool plugins that can kind of manage the differences between the formats of those that outputted content, so that it will come into you don't have to rebuild all of that content. It'll come into whatever. So say someone's moving from Blogger or Tumblr over to WordPress, you can export the content out of that app and then pull it into WordPress. It's never easy, but hopefully it's not as difficult as rebuilding all that content by hand, because that's going to take a lot of time. So go ahead and under WordPress say install now. This will install a little plugin to WordPress, that will allow you to upload and parse an XML file, and it will punch that into the database for you. So that should, then once you've installed it, you can see the link changes to run importer. So we're now going to run that importer and pull that file. So we need the XML file. So import WordPress, upload your WordPress extended RSS, WXR, and we'll import the posts, pages, comments, custom fields, categories, tags into this site. Cool. So go ahead and choose your file. Select the XML file that we just downloaded. Hit open. Then it should be listed here after the file chooser, and then go ahead and upload file and import. Now, when it detects that file, it says, well, hold on a second. This imported file has a number of like made-up phony people that have posted these. Like there's some authors, Theme Buster, Chip Bennett. You can change those so that they're all written by you if you want, or you can leave them as they are. But it's really important here to import attachments. So the XML file also references a number of images, because some of the posts have photographs. So it can simulate what a post or a page might look like with a series of photos. So make sure you check off download and import file attachments. And then go ahead and hit submit. It'll take a bit of time. Okay, so once it says all done, have fun, we can go back to the dashboard. And if you go and click on underneath, there's a link called posts. So click on posts. You'll see now there's suddenly a ton of content in the post. There's 3 pages worth of posts, each with their own dates, right? Audio posts, video posts, image posts. That's cool. Also pages. So go down here to pages. You can see there's also a ton of maybe not as many, but different pages. So they've added. So here's for example, sample page. You can click on this, and you can see they put some example pages with some block quotes in it. Just sample nonsense content that's going to help you. Let's take a look at it in WordPress. Let's go to visit the site. And you can see the recent posts, recent comments, and archives. So you can see some of those recent posts, some categories of posts. I mean, it's over the top, but it's for example, let's look at markup, HTML tags and formatting. So this is great. So you'll know when you build the style out. There's all your heading levels, what your block quotes will look like. So if you want to modify those, your tables, definition lists, unordered lists, ordered lists, on and on it goes, right? All kinds of cool stuff. Now, WordPress, of course, features two different types of posts: hierarchical post content, which is pages, which are timestamped, but they're not organized that way, and posts, which are organized chronologically, right? So they have a kind of a timestamp to them, and comments and things like that. So let's go ahead. We're going to go back to the dashboard, and we're going to put together the navigation. So we'll go to Appearance and then go down to Menus. So we're going to edit a menu, and we're going to add all these pages. So here under, you see there's a Pages tab, a panel. Go to Select All, and then we want to add these to the menu. Once you do that, you can see that the pages are added here, right? Then once we click on Save Menu, that menu is saved. So then if we go back to look at the Visit the Site, and I don't see it. It's not here. So what we have to go back now is place it. So go back to the dashboard. Go to Appearance. Menus. Go to Manage Locations. And under Primary Menu, we put All Pages, right? Which is the one we built over there. Save that. Then go and look at Visit the Site. And that's our navigation for so on and so forth. Okay, so it's a lot of the work a lot of the templates are built so that you can add, remove navigation. You can move them around if you want. You can manipulate templates all within the WordPress. So you don't really even have to get into code or not changing templates in PHP. You can, and we'll do some of that next week. But a lot of it's just working with the dashboard. So that's cool. What time we got? 15:47. Okay, so the next thing that's really I'll axe out of that. The next thing that we have to realize is these when you download a fresh copy of WordPress, what they do is they give you those themes like 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017. Those are not designed to be used as they are. They're designed to be as a kind of a starting point for you to develop or build upon. So there's all kinds of these kind of development themes, what they call them. There's thousands of them out there. Some of them are free, some of them are paid. Don't discount themes that you pay for. The nice thing about, and I've bought and purchased WordPress themes, the nice thing about those are that you have someone on the other end of the phone. If you run into a problem, you can pick up the phone and there's support. They built it, they understand how it works, and you can often save yourselves many, many, many times in time what you paid for. So it oftentimes purchasing a theme from a theme developer, if you're in a as part of some professional work that you can easily customize, and then you have a team of people helping you, it saves you money. So don't be afraid of paying people for themes. I've also purchased and used themes for other platforms like Shopify, for example, which is a shopping cart platform, which includes a lot of CMS features, and it was great. It speeds up development. I can get some of those professionally built themes they're designed to be customized, so you can quickly add all the stuff you need and extend it with your custom CSS where you need, speed up things a lot. So let's imagine we find a theme. For example, well, maybe we want to change this. Let's go over to our dashboard, or let's go to themes, and I want to, let's change this to, so the active is 2015. Let's change it to 2016 and activate that. So with the same content, right? So it doesn't matter. Like the content and the data and the way it's presented can be completely separate. Like those themes, we can present this content in any way we want, really, right? So let's imagine then, for an example, if I go back to themes here. So here's 2017. I'll activate that one. See what the difference is. See how the content changes in terms of its layout. Right? Pretty cool. I mean, so let's imagine that you're tasked with building out a small or a medium-sized website with a fairly decent amount of content, and you're asked to work with within a corporate style guide as well, with logos and branding elements, and you've got all that stuff. What you might consider doing then, or very often in shop when you're building these things out, is you would select a theme that is in terms of its. If you look at it in terms of a wireframe, think about it like a wireframe. Like this is kind of generally the theme that's going to fit the way I want the content to be laid out. So you purchase that, or you download that theme, you activate it. So I'll activate this one. You can add new themes, of course. There's a ton in the marketplace that are quite. Some of them are free. Some of them are low cost. Some can be a significant cost depending on. But anyway, you find one that works for the most part. A way to really speed things up is then to build something called the child theme, and some themes are even built to function in this parent-child theme relationship. So the idea behind a WordPress child theme is that the parent theme has most of the styles in terms of your layout and functionality that you want. The child theme is where what we do is we just extend that. So maybe just add those branding elements, some colors, some typography, a few small layout changes, and voila, we're done. And then when the author updates the theme, say they make some improvements to the theme in terms of maybe in terms of its responsiveness or some other features, you can benefit from those updates because you haven't modified the parent theme, you've only modified the child theme, right? So if you modify the parent theme, you can't benefit from updates from the theme developer anymore, right? So what you want to do is extend that theme, use the power of CSS to cascade over those rules, and just apply your changes on top of that. It really saves you a lot of time and money, right? And that's the way a lot of themes are built. They're built to be extended and so we're going to show you how to take a theme, build your own child theme, and extend it to save you a heap of time and also give you lots of leverage in terms of design, right? And focus on the harder, the tougher, the more how do you say, the finer points of design, and leave that kind of scaffolding that is the grid layout and the responsiveness to a platform that's been kind of built out for you. Okay, so that's cool. So what we'll do in preparation for that, then we'll go back to our themes. We'll activate 2015. I've already got it. I think 2015 is already active, isn't it? Maybe that's already active. Yes, 2015. So activate, if you haven't got it, 2015 activated, activate that. and then we'll take a breather, and then I'll show you how to build a child theme, and so you can extend this, and you can save a ton of time, okay, and get some pretty cool results. Cool. Child themes. All right, so let's build out this child theme, and we'll see how we can supercharge our effort to leverage an existing theme and use build upon it. So we'll head over to first of all, we'll head over to our file system. So in Mac or whatever, or in Windows, navigate to the Azure Wordpress folder. So inside there will be another folder that whatever is the name of your app on Azure. And then in there are all of the files, of course. Then I want you to go into WP WordPress content. And then go into the themes folder. And then we're going to create a child theme that builds on the 2015 theme. So what I need to do is create a new folder in here inside the themes directory, and we're going to name it 2015 or 20 no space, all lowercase. Better watch my spelling here. 20 FIFTEEN dash and call it child. So 2015, all one word, all lowercase, dash child is the name of the folder. Cool. Okay, so now inside that, let's go to our code editor. We're going to create a piece of CSS. Go to the code editor. And then we're going to, we'll crack this open. And if we go to File, New File, we'll save this as a piece of CSS. And we'll call it style.css, and we'll put it into Azure WordPress, WP content, themes, and we're going to put it into the 2015 child. Okay, so now this particular style sheet has to have a very particular format that works with WordPress, and one of the things is it works with comments. So we'll open up a comment, break to a new line, hit in a tab, and we'll say capital theme, capital name, and it has to be the same. You can't mess around with. So this WordPress actually reads the comments in the CSS file and parses them and does something functionally with them. So you have to write them exactly as you see them here on the screen. So the theme name is, we're going to call this the 2015 child theme. Description, so watch your spelling. And then of course you can put any description you want. My first theme, whatever you want. That's not what I wanted. Okay, so description. Then we need to put the author name. Author, put your own name in there. Then we put the template. And this template value actually corresponds exactly with the folder name of the parent. So the one that the theme that we're going to drive, use as the as the format. So in this case, look at exactly what that folder is called. It's just 2015, and we type exactly that. Okay, so the spelling counts, huge. And then version, and then close out the comment. So that needs to be so save that. And of course, it with commit those changes, adding a child theme. Folder and CSS. Commit that, and then push that up to the server. Alternately, if you're using FileZilla, you would then move up into, and make sure you put it in the same directory. So you'd put it in the WP content directory, the themes directory, and move the 2015 child folder into up here, into the right beside the 2015. Okay? So if you're using FTP, that's the way you do it. So if everything's cool, if that's moved up to the server, once we go over to our WordPress dashboard, and I go into themes again, I should have a new card here that's called 2015 child theme. So that text is actually taken from this comment right here. That's where that's driven from. Okay, so it doesn't have a screenshot. We'll add that shortly in a second. So go ahead and activate that 2015 child theme. And then if we go and visit the site, you'll see that the site is totally broken. That's okay. It should be broken. Okay? Totally broken. We totally broke it. Cool. So then we'll head over to, so we've got a couple of things to fix to make this happen. So one of the ways a child theme works is you need to include a file that actually is a functions file that actually grabs the style sheet from the parent theme and applies that. And then also the child theme. So what we'll do is, if you go over to head over to Blackboard and reload the page here. I posted a link here. Called WordPress child theme. So if you click on this link here, that will take you to something called the WordPress Codex. And this is where all of the documentation for WordPress, the WordPress app, lives, and it's well maintained. And so they actually walk you through how to create a basic child theme. So this is great to munch through. We've done this. We created the style sheet with the header. The next part is we need to create a functions.php that calls up the parent style and the child style. Okay, so that so you'll see this panel here. Copy this code here. Not the first one up here. You can use that one, but this is the more up-to-date version of that. The first one will function, but this is a better. This is a bit better in terms of performance. We'll head over to our code editor. We'll create a new file. File new. And we'll go File, Save As. And this one will be called functions.php. this also goes in the child theme directory. Same thing. So it goes right beside the style.css. Okay. Then paste that code that you nabbed from the WordPress codex. Type it out if you want. If you're a masochist, you feel like, go ahead. I would just nab that. So a couple of things we need to change out. The parent style. So if you go back to the codex, you'll see we have to swap out a few things. Oh, here it is. So the parent style is this is the name of the directory here, 2015-style. So we have to swap that out in our PHP. So we have to head over to PHP and change this to and it has to be spelled exactly the same as the name of this directory here. And the same thing here for the NQ style for the child directory. We swap out child here for 2015-child style. Save that. Commit these changes. Commit. Push to the server. Then if we reload the page, we should get our styles back. So we can even take a look at the code, view the page source, and take a look at the CSS. Where did they jam the CSS? Okay. So there you can see on line 39 to 40 or so, how those style sheets are now pulled in. So we pull in the 2015 style and then the 2015 child style sheet. Now pulls in after it, so now we can write styles in the child CSS that will overwrite or cascade over the base style. Pretty neat. Cool. That's all right. So how is that going? Well, let's see this in action. So let's go to the style for the child theme. Actually, before that, let's go and upload the crazy. Let's get so in the dashboard for WordPress. I go back to my dashboard. And we go to appearance themes. Let's upload the screenshot for the theme here. So obviously, if you're building out a theme, and some of you may be involved in building themes for CMS platforms, and you may sell them. That may be part of the business that you're in. Then you're going to want to put a screenshot, like put some nice content in there, take a screenshot, and then I think they're very specific. I think they have to be 880 by 660 pixels, and they have to be put into the theme, into the child or to the theme directory. So I've got one for you already set up. If you go into, if you head over into Blackboard, I've got a theme image, a screenshot.png. So it has to be called screenshot.png. So save that, download that file. Advanced lessons. Nine, custom app themes. If we go into Azure WordPress, WordPress Esprindle, or whatever you've called it, the content into the themes, and then this goes into the 2015 child folder. That should be picked up by Git. Adding screenshot or theme. Once that's on the server, all you have to do is head back to that and you'll have a screenshot for your theme, right? It's pretty neat, actually. I just made that one up. It's just kind of bogus, but you get the idea. That's cool. All right, so let's get into the style sheet. Let's actually get into the act of actually now taking that basic style and manipulating that to do our kind of evil bidding, if you will. Well, not necessarily evil, sometimes. All right, that's cool. So there's our site. Let's get into the CSS. Let's go into styles.css. Oh, we're already there. Cool. All right, the first thing I want to do then is to, okay, we did that, we've done that. Did the dummy content. Page navigation, good. Customize an entry page. So let's go to, in our site, let's navigate to the front page here. Click on front page. And go ahead and right click on the content there, the word front, the heading for front page. And we'll inspect that in the DOM inspector. You'll see that it's inside a header and it's an H1 with the class .entry title. So much of this application, as much of these web applications are, they're often driven by classes. So, but you'll notice that this particular theme, the markup is very semantic. It's really nice. Like they've good uses of page level headers and bodies and article elements and sections and all that. Like it's really, really well thought out. It's really, really quite good. And it makes the CSS, extending the CSS a pleasure. It's really nice. So you'll know when you're working with a theme that isn't so carefully put together, it makes your CSS a mess and it makes your life a headache. So, sometimes, make sure you're working with quality themes if you're doing whatever application you're working on, whether it's Magento or Shopify or I don't know, whatever. Joomla, Drupal, WordPress. Make sure you get a quality theme because it's a pleasure to work with. You can make your life very painful by trying to save a few bucks and get into some bad code. So we have it. So you can see that this H1 is class with .entry title, and very often that's all you need to do in the CSS is your selector just needs to reference those classes, and that will be enough specificity because of that later order of the child CSS to win the day. So we'll change the font there for that. Yeah, so let's go into we'll go into our CSS here. And first of all, actually, let's grab we'll grab a web font. We'll bolt on a web font. Say we want to add a Google font. So go over to, let's head over to Google Fonts. Let's choose a display font from the list here. Alpha Slab 1. I like that one. Let's choose whatever one tickles your fancy. Doesn't matter. Click on the little plus button to add it. And then in here, we want to grab not the standard, but we want to grab the @import. You don't need the style tag. You just need the @import here. Nab that because we're gonna stuff that @import directive right into the style sheet. So grab that for whatever font you want from the font service. Off you go. But make sure your @import for your web fonts are before any CSS rules, right? Those @imports have to come before CSS rules, or chances are they may not work. Okay. So now we've got Alpha Slab 1. So now what I want to do is I want to style that. So if I go back to my, and this is where this is where that inspector comes in so handy. So I highlight this H1 here, and I can look here at this. You can see how the applied styles, and you can even see which ones are have been cascaded over and replaced. So our font size has been replaced with font size 3.9 rem. So on and so forth, right? It's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and class entry dash title. And Alpha Slab 1 in this case. If the way that the API works for the CSS is this is passed as a string. If there are pluses, those are spaces. And if you have spaces in the name of the font from the Google Fonts API, you have to quote that in the font family or the font property value, so that's treated as one. And then I'll just say and I'll fall back to a fantasy as a broader category. There we go. So now we can change the entry title. Push that to server. All right. So now we can see, and you can head over to any other pages, and you can see now, anytime we have the title of the entry is going to be powered by that child theme, right? And the beauty of that is I haven't changed the parent theme. So if the author makes some important updates to the parent theme, you pull them in, right? That doesn't blow away your customizations. That's really, really, really important, right? Particularly in an environment now where we have, a theme there may be security issues that need to be patched, right? So you want the author to patch those without destroying overwriting your hard work. That can be really expensive. I've been there. That's not cool. We can do more than that. We can also change, say, the background color of the page for the whole thing. So let's even head over into back in here. Of course, I'll do this a little high level here. I'll put that on the body. How about papaya whip? How about that? Use some of these crazy keywords. That will affect the entire site, right? Simple. And all your customizations are right here. Save that. Updating page. There you go. Right. So I click on the body here. In the DOM inspector, you can see here from style.css, papaya whip. There it is. Cool. Right. I'll change the color. We'll change the color of the entry title as well. Peru. Where do they come up with this stuff? Maybe the font size. What I notice is I know this is a pretty modern. Theme because we're using their font size. They're actually using root M, 3.9 root M, right? That's cool. So let's size that up a little bit. Let's say I don't know, 4.8 root M, rem. All right, up we go. Cool. We can change other, like, what about the primary heading for the site here? Maybe I don't want it, maybe I want it a little smaller. Maybe I want this to be bigger. But let's take a look. Let's inspect, see what this is. This element is the div class site branding. It's a paragraph class site title. So I could probably just use the site title. And that'll win the day, right? So the top style here is the anchor, the A styles in style.css. So let's go ahead. So site, class site dash title. Nope. I'll make it the same, or maybe we want to get a different font. Yeah, let's grab a different font. Let's see, not that we should be going overboard with our fonts. Some crazy stuff on here. Let's have. That's crazy. That's a barcode font. That's nuts. That might come in useful, actually. Think of things that you would do with that. All right. So now, go to the add import, and instead I can have an import that pulls in both those fonts. So copy that. So the way the API works is you can put a pipe character, and you can additionally pull in more font families with the same add import directive. So now I'll change the site title to font family It's a bit nuts. That's right. So there you go. So that's a primer into using a parent theme, and of course there's far more things you can do with the child theme. We'll get into this next week in terms of okay, what if I want to offer a different page layout for certain page post types? You know, what if I need a full width page layout for post types that have a lot of text on them? What if I need to manipulate where some navigation panels go, or some images or some other things I can do? So what if I just need to move things around and be a little bit more prescriptive in terms of the layout? Well, you can do that by extending, because most of the if we go into here, you can take a look at the 2015, and you can see that each of the way the pages are built. For example, we have for example, here's the content.php file, right? So what it does is if it's an article, it creates an article element. It puts a thumbnail for the post, adds a post header if it's a single, so on and so forth. So there's a loop that it goes through. There's the content for the post, and then it puts the footer back in for the article, and then closes out the article. And then, of course, is headers, page headers, and page footers. We'll build out your doc type and all that kind of thing. So you can change the HTML that's output by adding a new template. And then in the WordPress, let's go over here. For example, if I go into the dashboard and I go to a page, and I edit a page, right? You can, because yeah, page attributes. I think I have to add more page templates to the list. Let's go back to pages, see if I can get one that's, or maybe a post. No, I can't. I've got to add some more templates so you can see it. But there's a little drop down comes out, and you can change. You can create a post and then power it with a different template, and then it will output different HTML using the same content. So we'll show you how to do that. But there's just so much flexibility with this. But the point of the matter is you want to do it responsibly, so that you know, don't reinvent the wheel. If you have there's so many great templates and basically grid-based layouts that are responsive. They handle all that for you. Focus on then customizing beyond that to focus or to support the company's style guide and the branding and all that kind of good stuff. Cool.
So, quick question.
Yep.
So, why is it that if you go to the dashboard and go to visit the site,
Yep.
The parent style sheet overwrites color on the template sticky. If you look in there, and that should be Peru, but then the parent style sheet overwrites it.
Oh, in this case, yeah.
Oh.
So I click through on it. Yeah. Yeah. So this is a sticky post. So this one, you can have a chronological post. So generally a blog is set up so that the latest posts sit at the top and the older ones bump down. But this one is sticky. So this one, that's not actually the post page. This is the home page. So I guess there's some rules on the home page that are trumping that. So you'd have to be a bit more specific. So I don't know. I'll inspect and see.
I guess it is a link.
So I can see. it's the entry title. Entry title, it's an H2. So maybe the H2, yeah, see the color's been cascaded. So there's a specificity issue there. Yeah, so you'd have to create a more specific selector. Yeah, don't go into the parent and start hacking the, that's the danger here, when it's tempting to go and do not, when you're building a child theme, don't edit the parent. Just build a more specific selector. So maybe say we say, but in the post, that becomes an H1, right? If I go to the post page and inspect that, I think that becomes an H1. Yeah. So I guess you'd have to do H2 entry title, comma H1 entry title, color, and entry title. Yeah, so I'd have to do like H1 entry title. Oh, was it? Right, because it's a link to the page itself. So I go back to entry title A. Okay, so what if I did this then? I want to keep this very, so if I did class entry title, comma, class entry title A would do it, I think. No, maybe it's not. Maybe it's not up yet. There you go. Yes. Am I back on the page?
Oh wait, never mind. You're not.
Oh, yeah, it's good. Yeah, so that's specific enough. So there you go. Good question. Yeah.
Yeah, just wondering, because when we were doing the strap thing, I tried customizing the nav bar, and it would just override, or it would just override itself.
Yeah, you have to. This is where it's really helpful in to use, like, if your styles aren't working, like, inspect the element, make sure you're actually have it highlighted here, right, and then look and see, right, where the rules are coming from, and so you know how specific your selector has to be. Okay, that's cool. So for today's lab, where's my for exercise or lab 9, if you go here and you give me in the comments, you give me the URL for your page. So go into the, grab the URL for the page and copy that here so I can see your child theme is working. You'll get credit for the lab today. That is the extent of the work. If you have not got it up and running, I'll make sure I post this video right away. I'll post, so make sure you, also I'll put, there's a couple of things to look at in the instructions in the codex up here. I'll also put an article, a very good article from Smashing Magazine, which kind of inspired this this lesson. So you can leaf through that. It's a great article. Smashing Magazine is always good. And yeah, and if you have any trouble, if you're still having trouble with Git, with your Azure, any other kind of that stuff, connect with me. Find my office hours. Make sure to connect with Greg if there's still other problems with your Azure. Try and get you running, but you're going to need that stuff. Okay, there's really no excuse at this point. You should have that stuff up and running. Cool.